The doctor's hands were shaking when he handed me the note. It said just 5 words: "Don't trust your son, Arlene." I froze. He couldn't have known what that meant, unless he'd seen something I hadn't. That night, I discovered the truth that shattered my life. If you've ever trusted the wrong person, stay with me. This story might feel all too familiar. My name is Arlene Whitman. I'm 68 years old, and until a few weeks ago, I thought I had lived a good life, a simple life, the kind where you wake up knowing you've done right by the people you love. I was a school teacher for 40 years. I taught 3rd grade in a small town outside Portland, Oregon. I loved those kids. I still remember their faces, their laughter, the way they'd race to show me their drawings. Teaching wasn't just a job, it was my purpose. It was the reason I got up every morning with a smile on my face. When my husband Thomas passed away 7 years ago, I thought my world had ended. We'd been married for 36 years. He was my best friend, my anchor, the person who knew me better than anyone. After he died, the house felt too big. The silence was unbearable. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and reach for him, only to find empty space. But I wasn't alone. My son David moved back in with me about 6 months after the funeral. He said he wanted to help. He'd been struggling with work, going through a rough patch, and I was more than happy to have him home. He was my only child. I would have done anything for him. David brought his wife Monica and their son Evan. Monica was always polite, always smiling. She had this warm way about her that made you feel comfortable. She'd bring me tea in the mornings and ask how I slept. She'd compliment my cooking and offer to help with the dishes. Evan was 17, quiet, always on his phone. Typical teenager. I didn't mind. I was just grateful to have family around me again. For a while, it felt like home again. We'd have dinner together every night. Monica would cook these elaborate meals, and I'd help her prep the vegetables. David would talk about job interviews, about plans to get back on his feet. He said he was applying to management positions, that something would come through soon. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. He seemed like he was trying. He'd dress up in a suit some mornings and leave with his briefcase. He'd come home and tell me about the interviews, about how close he was to landing something big. I'd encourage him, tell him I was proud of him for not giving up. I even put his name on my bank account. He said it would make things easier in case I needed help with bills or if something happened to me. He said it was just a precaution, something responsible people did. I trusted him completely.
Why wouldn't I? He was my son. I'd raised him. I'd taught him right from wrong. I'd sacrificed so much to give him a good life. Looking back now, I can see the signs, the little things that didn't quite add up. But when you love someone, when you trust them with your whole heart, you don't see those things. You explain them away. You make excuses. Like the way Monica would ask about my doctor's appointments. She seemed so concerned, so caring. But there was always this edge to her questions. "Are you feeling okay, Arlene? You seem a little confused lately. Maybe you should get checked for memory issues." I'd laugh it off. I wasn't confused. I was 68, not 90. I could remember everything just fine. Or the way David would intercept my mail. He said he was helping me organize my bills, keeping things neat. But sometimes I'd ask about a bank statement, and he'd say it hadn't come yet. Then weeks would go by, and I'd forget I'd even asked. There were moments when I'd catch them whispering in the kitchen, and they'd stop abruptly when I walked in. Monica would smile brightly and ask if I wanted more coffee. David would change the subject, ask me about my day. I told myself they were just being private. Every couple needs their space. Every family has secrets that aren't really secrets, just personal things. But deep down, somewhere in the back of my mind, I felt it. That little voice that says, something isn't right. I just didn't want to listen. because listening meant facing the possibility that the people I loved most in the world might not love me back the same way. Tell me in the comments, have you ever ignored a small sign because you loved someone too much? It started with a routine checkup. I hadn't been to the doctor in almost a year, and Monica kept insisting I go. She'd bring it up at breakfast, at dinner, whenever we were together. Arlene, you really should get your blood pressure checked. You're not getting any younger. What if something's wrong and we don't know? At first, I brushed it off. I felt fine. I wasn't having any symptoms. But she was persistent, relentless even. Finally, just to get her off my back, I made an appointment with Dr. Harrison. The clinic was quiet that Tuesday morning in late September. The receptionist, a young woman named Amy, smiled at me when I walked in. She'd been working there for years. We always chatted about her kids. That day, she asked how I was doing, if David and his family were still staying with me. I told her yes, that it was wonderful having them around. She smiled, but there was something odd in her expression, like she wanted to say something but thought better of it.
The nurse took my vitals. Blood pressure was good, heart rate was normal, weight was stable, everything checked out. I sat in the exam room, looking at the posters about flu shots and diabetes prevention, waiting for Dr. Harrison. When he walked in, I knew immediately that something was wrong. Dr. Harrison had been my physician for 15 years. He was calm, professional, the kind of doctor who actually listened when you talked. He'd seen me through Thomas's cancer diagnosis, through my grief after he passed, through every minor illness and concern I'd had. He knew me. But that day, he was different. He wouldn't look me in the eye. His hands trembled slightly as he flipped through my chart. When he spoke, his voice was tight, strained, like he was forcing the words out. "Everything looks fine, Mrs. Whitman," he said, staring at the clipboard. "Blood pressure's good, heart rate's normal. You're in excellent health for your age." But his eyes told a different story. He kept glancing at the door, like he was afraid someone might walk in. His jaw was clenched. There was sweat on his forehead, even though the room was cool. Then he started asking strange questions that had nothing to do with my physical health. "Mrs. Whitman, have you been managing your finances okay? Any trouble keeping track of bills or bank accounts?" I frowned. "No, I'm fine. Why do you ask?" "And you're living with family now, correct? Your son and his wife?" "Yes. They moved in to help me after Thomas passed." He nodded slowly, writing something down. "Are you feeling confused lately? Any memory issues? Trouble remembering names or dates?" "No," I said, more firmly this time. "Dr. Harrison, what's this about? Is there something wrong?" He looked up then, finally meeting my eyes. For just a moment, I saw something in his expression. Fear, urgency, like he wanted to scream something but couldn't. No, he said quickly. "Just routine questions for patients your age. It's important to stay on top of cognitive health." He scribbled something else on a piece of paper, then handed me the usual printout of my test results. "Take care of yourself, Mrs. Whitman, and don't hesitate to call if you need anything." Then he practically rushed out of the room. I sat there for a moment, confused. That whole interaction had felt off, wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on why. I gathered my things and left. The receptionist gave me the same strange look on my way out. I drove home feeling uneasy, like I'd missed something important. It wasn't until I got home that I found it. I was in my bedroom, putting the paperwork in my medical records folder, when a small piece of paper slipped out from between the pages. It was folded in half, the edges slightly crumpled like it had been stuffed in there quickly. I unfolded it. The handwriting was Dr. Harrison's. I recognized his messy scrawl from years of prescriptions and notes. It said, "Don't trust your son. Check your bank account."
My heart stopped. I read it again and again. My hands started shaking just like his had. This had to be a mistake. A cruel joke? Maybe it was meant for someone else. Maybe the doctor had confused me with another patient. That happens sometimes, right? Doctors were busy, they saw dozens of patients a day. But he called me by name, Mrs. Whitman. He knew exactly who I was. I sat down on the edge of my bed, staring at that note. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of it. Why would Dr. Harrison write something like this? Why couldn't he just tell me to my face? Why slip me a secret note like we were in some kind of spy movie? And what did he mean, don't trust my son? David was my son. I had given him birth. I'd raised him. I'd nursed him through childhood illnesses, taught him to ride a bike, helped him with his homework, been there for every milestone of his life. I'd trust him with my life, wouldn't I? I folded the note and put it in my purse. I told myself I'd call the doctor's office tomorrow, clear this up. There had to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe Dr. Harrison was having personal problems. Maybe he'd made a mistake. Maybe this note wasn't even meant for me. But even as I tried to rationalize it, I felt a knot forming in my stomach. That same feeling I'd been pushing down for months. The feeling that something wasn't right. That evening, I tried to act normal. I came downstairs for dinner. Monica had made pot roast, one of my favorites. Evan was at the table, earbuds in, barely acknowledging anyone. David was on his phone, scrolling through something. "How is the doctor, Mom?" David asked without looking up.
"Fine," I said. "Everything's normal." "Good, good. Told you there was nothing to worry about." Monica smiled at me. "I'm so glad, Arlene. We were worried about you." I forced a smile back and started eating, but I couldn't taste the food. My mind was elsewhere, replaying Dr. Harrison's strange behavior, the note, David's casual question. After dinner, I said I was tired and went upstairs, but I didn't go to bed. I sat by my door, listening. Around 9 o'clock, I heard voices downstairs, David and Monica, talking in the living room. Their voices were low, but the house was old, and sound carried through the vents. I crept out of my room and stood at the top of the stairs, straining to hear. "She went to the doctor today," Monica said. Her voice had changed. It wasn't the sweet, caring tone she used with me. It was cold, calculating. "I know. She said everything was fine." "Do you think he said anything to her?" "Who? Harrison?" "Yes. What if he suspects something?" There was a pause. "He won't. And even if he does, what can he do? He can't prove anything." My blood ran cold. What were they talking about? Prove what? "We need to move faster. She's not going to just hand everything over. We need to take control before she figures it out." "She's not going to figure it out," David said, and I could hear the irritation in his voice. "She's old, Monica. She trusts me. She'd never believe I'd do anything to hurt her." "What about the accounts? Have you transferred everything?" "Most of it. There's still about $30,000 in the savings, but I'll move that next week. I'm waiting for a check to clear first." I gripped the railing so hard my knuckles turned white. They were talking about my money, my accounts. "And the house?" Monica asked. "The mortgage went through last month, $250,000. It's sitting in the offshore account." "Does she know?" David laughed, a cold, humorless laugh. "No, she still thinks she owns this place free and clear. By the time she figures it out, if she ever does, we'll be long gone." I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I stood there, frozen, listening to my son and his wife plan my destruction. "What if someone asks questions?" Monica said. "What if a neighbor or one of her old teacher friends gets suspicious?" "They won't. I've been careful, and we've been laying the groundwork for months. Everyone thinks she's starting to lose it. The forgetfulness, the confusion. When the time comes, it'll be easy to get her declared incompetent." "And then?"
And then we have power of attorney. We control everything. The house, the accounts, the life insurance, everything. God, I can't wait to get out of this dump, Monica said. I'm so tired of pretending to care about her stupid stories. They both laughed. The sound made me physically sick. Just a few more weeks, David said. Then she's not our problem anymore. I backed away from the stairs slowly, carefully, terrified they'd hear me. I went back to my room and locked the door. My whole body was shaking. I sat on my bed, the note from Dr. Harrison still in my purse on the nightstand. I took it out and read it again. Don't trust your son. Check your bank account. He knew. Somehow Dr. Harrison knew what they were doing. Maybe he'd seen the signs in other patients. Maybe he'd heard something, but he knew, and he'd tried to warn me. I looked at my phone. It was almost 10 o'clock. Too late to call anyone. Too late to go to the bank. I'd have to wait until morning. But I knew I wouldn't sleep. How could I? My own son, the baby I'd held in my arms, the child I'd loved unconditionally, was stealing from me, was plotting to take everything I had. 40 years of teaching, 40 years of saving every penny, 36 years of marriage to a man who'd worked himself to death to provide for our family. All of it stolen. And worse than the money, worse than the house, was the betrayal. The knowledge that my son didn't love me. Maybe he never had. Maybe I'd been nothing but a means to an end, a bank account with a heartbeat.
I didn't cry. I couldn't. There was just this hollow, aching emptiness inside me, like someone had reached in and scooped out everything that made me human. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle around me. Sometime around midnight, I heard footsteps on the stairs, heard David and Monica go to their room, heard their door close, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to let them do this. I wasn't going to be a victim. I'd spent 40 years teaching children to stand up for themselves, to be brave, to fight for what was right. It was time I took my own advice. Would you believe the note or your family? The next morning, I waited until David and Monica left the house. David said he had a job interview downtown. Monica said she was meeting a friend for lunch. I smiled and told them to have a good day. They smiled back, and I wondered how I'd never seen the lies before. Evan left for school around 7:30. As soon as I was alone, I grabbed my purse and drove to the bank. I'd been banking at Pacific Northwest Credit Union for over 30 years. The building was familiar, comforting. I knew most of the tellers by name. They'd processed my paychecks for decades, helped me open savings accounts, given me a loan when Thomas and I bought our house. That morning, I walked in with my heart pounding. The teller, Sarah, was a young woman I'd known since she was a trainee. She smiled when she saw me. "Mrs. Whitman, how are you?" "I'm fine, Sarah. I need to check my account balances, please." "Of course. Let me pull those up for you." She typed on her keyboard, and I watched her face change. The smile faded. Her eyebrows drew together. "Mrs. Whitman, is everything all right?" "What do you mean?" She hesitated, then turned the screen toward me. "Your savings account shows a balance of $372. I stared at the number. That couldn't be right. That couldn't possibly be right. I'd had over $180,000 in that account. It was my life savings, money I'd saved from my teaching salary over 40 years, Thomas's life insurance payout, our retirement fund that we'd been so careful with. "There must be a mistake," I said, but my voice sounded distant, hollow. Sarah clicked through the transaction history. "There have been multiple large withdrawals over the past 6 months, all authorized by the joint account holder, David." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. Can I see the records? She printed them out, page after page of transactions, withdrawals, transfers, cashier's checks, 10,000 here, 15,000 there, 25,000, 40,000. All of them authorized by David Whitman. All of them legitimate as far as the bank was concerned because I'd put his name on the accounts. I'd given him the keys to rob me blind. Mrs. Whitman, are you okay? Sarah's voice seemed to come from far away. Do you need to sit down? I shook my head. What about my checking account? She pulled it up. That's down to about $1,500. I'd had over $30,000 in checking, money for bills, for emergencies, for daily life. Mrs. Whitman, if you didn't authorize these transactions, you need to report this. This could be fraud. But it wasn't fraud, not legally. I'd put David's name on the accounts. I'd trusted him with access to everything. As far as the bank was concerned, he had every right to take that money. Is there anything else I can help you with? Sarah asked gently. My house, I said. I own my house outright. It's paid off. Can you tell me if there are any loans or liens against it? She looked confused. Mrs. Whitman, I can't access property records from here. You'd need to check with the county recorder's office. I thanked her and left. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel. I drove to the county administration building, parked, and went inside. The woman at the recorder's office was middle-aged, professional, with kind eyes. I gave her my address and asked her to pull up the property records. She typed for a moment, then turned the screen toward me. Here you are. There's a mortgage on the property, taken out 4 months ago for $250,000. The room spun. But I never signed anything. She clicked through the documents. The paperwork shows you did. Here's the signature page. She printed it out and handed it to me. There was my name, signed at the bottom, except it wasn't my signature. It was close, very close, but the loops were wrong. The slant was different. The way the A in Arlene curved was off. Someone had forged my signature, and I knew exactly who. Who took out this loan? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. She checked the document. David Whitman. He's listed as co-owner of the property. I never made him co-owner. She looked at me with sympathy. Mrs. Whitman, if you believe this is fraudulent, you need to file a police report. This is a serious matter. I took the papers and left. I sat in my car in the parking lot, staring at that forged signature. $250,000, taken out against my home. The home Thomas and I had worked so hard to pay off. The home where I'd raised my son. The home that son was now stealing from me. I tried calling Dr. Harrison. The receptionist said he wasn't available. I left a message asking him to call me back as soon as possible. It was urgent. He never called back that day. Or the next. I went home in a fog. The house looked the same. The furniture Thomas and I had picked out together. The photos on the walls, my classroom decorations from decades of teaching. Everything familiar. Everything safe. Except it wasn't safe anymore. It was a trap. And I was the mouse who'd walked right into it. That night, I couldn't eat dinner. I told Monica I wasn't feeling well and went upstairs early. I heard her tell David, "See, she's getting worse. This is perfect timing." I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. My mind kept circling back to the same questions. How long had they been planning this? When did David decide that stealing from his own mother was acceptable? When did he stop seeing me as a person and start seeing me as a source of money? Had he ever really loved me? Or had I been delusional this whole time, projecting the son I wanted onto the reality of who he actually was? Around midnight, I heard them again. They weren't even trying to be quiet anymore. "We need to accelerate the timeline," Monica said, her voice carried up through the vents. "She went to the bank today. She knows something's wrong." She doesn't know anything, David said, but he sounded worried. She's just checking on things. Old people do that. What if she talks to someone? What if she calls a lawyer? She won't. She doesn't even know any lawyers. And even if she did, who's going to believe her? We've got everyone thinking she's losing her mind. I still think we should move faster. We need to get power of attorney before she does something stupid. I'm working on it, David snapped. I've got an appointment with a geriatric psychiatrist next week. He's going to evaluate her, say she's not competent to manage her own affairs. Once we have that diagnosis, getting power of attorney is easy. What if she refuses to go? She won't have a choice. I'll tell her it's a routine checkup. She'll believe me. She always does. There was a pause, then Monica laughed. It was a cruel, mocking sound. I can't believe how easy this has been. She handed you everything on a silver platter. My mother's always been an idiot, David said. All that talk about education and values and doing the right thing. And look at her now, broke and alone, and too stupid to even realize what we've done. The words hit me like physical blows. My son thought I was an idiot. He'd always thought that. Every smile, every hug, every I love you, Mom, had been a lie. What about the life insurance? Monica asked. That's the best part. She's got a $200,000 policy. If anything happens to her, I'm the sole beneficiary. Define anything. Don't be stupid, David said. We're not killing her. We don't need to. Once we have power of attorney, we put her in a home, some cheap Medicaid facility. Then we sell the house, take the money, and disappear. By the time anyone figures out what happened, we'll be in the Cayman Islands. God, I love you, Monica said. I know.
They laughed together, and I felt something inside me break. Not my heart. My heart had already shattered. This was something else, the last remnants of the person I'd been. The trusting, loving mother who believed in the goodness of people. That person died that night, and someone else took her place. Someone harder, someone angrier, someone who was done being a victim. I got out of bed and went to my dresser. In the bottom drawer, underneath old sweaters, was a box. Inside the box was a small digital recorder that Thomas had bought me years ago. I'd used it to record notes for lesson plans. I checked the battery. It still worked. The next morning, I called an old student of mine, Laura Chen. She'd been in my 3rd grade class 25 years ago. Bright, curious, always asking questions about everything. I'd kept in touch with her over the years. Christmas cards, occasional phone calls. I'd been so proud when she told me she'd become a police detective. When she answered, I didn't waste time on pleasantries. Laura, it's Mrs. Whitman. I need your help. Mrs. Whitman, it's so good to hear from you. Is everything okay? No, I said. Everything is not okay. Can we meet somewhere private? There was a pause. Of course. How about the coffee shop on 5th Street? I can be there in an hour. We met at a small cafe I'd never been to before. Laura was waiting at a corner table when I arrived. She stood and hugged me, and for a moment I almost broke down, but I held it together. What's going on? She asked as we sat down. I took out the note from Dr. Harrison, the bank statements, the property records, the recordings I'd made over the past few days. I laid it all out on the table between us. My son is stealing from me, and I need you to help me stop him. Laura listened to everything. She didn't interrupt, didn't ask questions. She just listened, her expression growing darker with every word. When she finished, she sat back in her chair and let out a long breath. Mrs. Whitman, this is serious. This is elder financial abuse. It's a felony. But we need to be very careful about how we handle this. What do you mean? If we move too fast, they'll cover their tracks, delete evidence, hide money. We need to build an airtight case before we make any moves.
I don't have time. They're planning to have me declared incompetent. Once they do that, it's over. Laura reached across the table and took my hand. We're not going to let that happen, Maddie. I promise you. But we have to be smart about this. What do I do? First, we document everything. I'll help you set up a proper recording system. We need to capture them on tape admitting to what they've done. Second, we contact Dr. Harrison. If he's willing to testify about why he gave you that note, it strengthens our case significantly. Third, we need to freeze your assets before they can take anything else. Can you do that? With the court order, yes, but we need evidence first. Solid, undeniable evidence. She pulled out her phone and started taking notes. I want you to keep acting normal at home. Don't let them know you suspect anything. Can you do that? I thought about it. Could I look my son in the eye, knowing what he was doing, and pretend everything was fine? Could I smile at Monica, make small talk, act like the oblivious old woman they thought I was? Yes, I said. I can do that. Good. I'm going to reach out to some colleagues, see if we can fast-track this. Elder abuse cases are taken very seriously, especially when there's this much money involved. She paused, studying my face. Mrs. Whitman, I have to ask, are you sure you want to do this? Pressing charges against your own son, it's going to be difficult. Emotionally, I mean. I looked at her, this young woman I'd taught to read, who'd sat in my classroom and learned about honesty and integrity and doing the right thing. Laura, my son stopped being my son the moment he decided to steal from me. What I want now is justice. She nodded. Then that's what we'll get you. Don't skip. You'll want to see how justice is served. Over the next 2 weeks, Laura and I worked together like we were planning a military operation. She brought over a professional-grade recording device, small enough to hide in a picture frame. It was voice-activated, could record for hours, and the quality was crystal clear. I placed it in the living room, angled so it would pick up conversations. Every night, I'd retrieve the memory card and give it to Laura. She'd listen to the recordings, catalog them, build the case piece by piece. And what we captured was damning. David talking to his lawyer about the process for getting someone declared incompetent. She's 70, forgetful, classic signs of dementia. Getting a judge to sign off should be easy. Monica on the phone with someone, laughing about how they were going to dump the old bat in the cheapest nursing home we can find. Conversations about selling the house, about transferring money to offshore accounts, about how long they'd need to wait after getting power of attorney before they could cut ties completely. Every word was evidence, every conversation another nail in their coffin. Laura also tracked down Dr. Harrison, and what she discovered changed everything. Dr. Harrison wasn't just being kind when he slipped me that note. He was part of a larger investigation. The FBI had been looking into a network of financial exploitation targeting elderly patients across the Pacific Northwest. Families would move in with aging parents or relatives, slowly drain their accounts, forge documents, and by the time anyone realized what was happening, the money was gone and the elderly person was either in a nursing home or had passed away. Dr. Harrison had noticed patterns in several of his patients, set in financial questions from family members, requests for competency evaluations, patients who seemed fine one day and were being declared incompetent the next. He'd been working with federal agents for over a year documenting cases, gathering evidence. When he saw my name come up as a potential victim, he couldn't officially warn me without compromising the investigation. So he'd taken a risk. He'd slipped me that note, hoping I'd figure it out. He probably saved your life, Laura told me, or at least your future.
With the FBI involved, things moved quickly. They obtained warrants for David's financial records, his phone records, his email. They found everything. The offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, the forged mortgage documents, the fake emails he'd sent pretending to be me, authorizing transfers. They found Monica's history too. This wasn't her first time doing this. She'd been married twice before David. Both times she'd targeted the husband's elderly family members. Both times she'd walked away with substantial amounts of money. She was a professional. And my son had either been her willing accomplice or her latest mark. I wasn't sure which was worse.
But we needed one more thing. We needed them to incriminate themselves in a way that left absolutely no doubt. We needed a confession on record that even the best lawyer couldn't explain away. Laura came up with a plan. We'd stage a confrontation. I'd tell David I knew what he was doing, but not reveal how much I knew. We'd see if he'd try to deny it, or if he'd slip up and admit to the theft. The recording device would capture everything. I was terrified. The thought of confronting my son, of looking him in the eye and accusing him, made me feel physically sick. But it had to be done. We chose a Friday evening. Monica had plans to go out with friends. Evan would be at a school event. It would be just David and me. Laura would be parked down the street in an unmarked car, listening to a live feed from the recording device. If anything went wrong, if David became violent or threatening, she could be inside in seconds. That afternoon, I rehearsed what I would say, how I would keep my voice steady, how I would push just enough to get him talking without making him suspicious. When David came home from his job search, I was waiting in the living room. I'd made coffee, set out his favorite cookies. I wanted everything to seem normal. "Hey, Mung," he said, dropping his briefcase by the door. "What's up?" "Can we talk for a minute?" He looked at me, and for just a second I saw something flicker in his eyes. Suspicion? Fear? But then he smiled. "Sure. Everything okay?" "Sit down, please." He sat on the couch across from me. I could see the recording device in the picture frame behind him, its tiny red light blinking. "David, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "Of course, Mom. What is it?" "I went to the bank last week." His expression didn't change, but I saw his jaw tighten, just slightly. "Okay. Is there a problem?" "My savings account is almost empty." He blinked. Twice. Then he leaned forward, his face the picture of concern. "What? That's impossible. Are you sure?" "I'm sure. The teller showed me the records." "Mom, that's terrible. Did they say what happened? Was there fraud?" "They said the money was withdrawn by the joint account holder." Silence. The air in the room felt thick, heavy. "That's crazy," David said finally. "I haven't touched your account. There must be a mistake. The bank showed me transaction records. Your name is on every withdrawal." He stood up, started pacing. "Mom, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe there's been identity theft or something, someone using my name. We should go to the bank together, sort this out. What about the mortgage?" He stopped pacing. His back was to me. "What mortgage?" "The one on my house. The one taken out 4 months ago for $250,000. He turned slowly. His face was pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me, David." His expression shifted. The ice melted away like hot water under ice. What replaced it was cold, calculating. "Mom, I think you're confused. This is exactly what I've been worried about. You're forgetting things, getting mixed up." "I'm not confused. I saw the documents. Someone forged my signature." "Did they?"
He took a step toward me. Mom, I need you to listen to me. You're not well. You've been forgetting things for months now, asking the same questions over and over, getting confused about where you put things. I didn't want to worry you, but Monica and I have been talking about getting you evaluated. There's nothing wrong with me.
He reached out and took my hand. His touch made my skin crawl. Mom, I love you. You know that, right? I would never do anything to hurt you. But you're getting older. You need help. We're just trying to take care of you. By stealing my money? His grip tightened on my hand. I haven't stolen anything. Everything I've done has been to help you, to protect you from yourself. Protect me? Yes, you were going to lose everything. You don't understand finances. You never have. Dad always handled the money, and after he died, you were lost. I had to step in. So you took out a mortgage on my house without telling me? I was trying to secure your future. That money is invested. It's growing. When you need it for care, for a nursing home, it'll be there. In an offshore account in the Cayman Islands? His face changed. The mask dropped completely. What I saw underneath was something I didn't recognize. Something cold and cruel. How do you know about that? Does it matter? He stood up abruptly, towering over me. Who have you been talking to? I asked you a question. Why is my money in an offshore account? Because it's safer there. Because I don't trust the American banking system. Because it's none of their damn business what I do with it. It's my money, David. He laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Is it? Last time I checked, my name is on those accounts too. Last time I checked, I'm the one who's been taking care of you, putting up with your constant complaining, listening to your boring stories about kids I don't care about. Then why did you move in? Why do you think? He leaned down, his face inches from mine. You're sitting on a fortune, Mom. A house worth $500,000, life insurance, retirement accounts, and you're just sitting here wasting it while I'm drowning in debt and can't find a job. So you decided to steal it?
I decided to take what should have been mine anyway. You and Dad always said everything would go to me when you died. I'm just getting it a little early. I'm not dead. Not yet. He said it casually, like he was talking about the weather. But let's be honest, Mom, you're 68 years old. You could have a stroke, a heart attack, anything. And then where would all that money go? To the state? To some charity? Why should I wait? I stared at my son, this stranger wearing my son's face. You really think you're going to get away with this? I know I am. He straightened up, smoothed his shirt. Because by Monday, you're going to be evaluated by a psychiatrist. He's going to determine that you're suffering from dementia, that you're not competent to manage your own affairs, and I'm going to be granted power of attorney. And if I refuse to see the psychiatrist, then I'll have you committed for a 72-hour evaluation. Trust me, Mom, I've done my research. Once I start the process, there's nothing you can do to stop it. What about the forgery, the fake signatures on the mortgage documents? He shrugged. Who's going to prove they're fake? You, the confused old woman who can't even remember what she signed? Or maybe you think the bank is going to side with you. They have a signed document. They have verification. As far as they're concerned, everything is legitimate. You've thought of everything. I've had a lot of time to plan. He walked to the door, picked up his briefcase. Here's how this is going to work. You're going to stop asking questions. You're going to stop snooping around. You're going to be a good, quiet old lady who does what she's told. And if I don't? He turned back, and the look in his eyes made my blood run cold. Then things get difficult for both of us, but mostly for you. Accidents happen, Mom. Elderly people fall downstairs. They forget to turn off the stove. They take the wrong medications. Are you threatening me? I'm explaining reality. You can make this easy or you can make this hard.
but either way, Monica and I are leaving this house with what we came for." He opened the door, then paused. "Oh, and Mom, that doctor who gave you the note, Dr. Harrison, he's been reassigned, transferred to a clinic in Alaska. You won't be seeing him again."
My heart sank. They'd gotten to him. They'd made sure my only ally was gone. "One more thing," David said. "If you try to talk to anyone about this, if you go to the police or a lawyer or anyone else, I'll have you committed immediately. I've already got the paperwork ready. One phone call and you're in a psychiatric ward being evaluated. And once you're in there, once there's an official record that you're mentally unstable, no one will believe a word you say." He smiled. It was the smile I'd seen 1,000 times growing up, the smile I'd thought meant love. Now I saw it for what it really was, manipulation. "Sweet dreams, Mom." He left. I heard his car start, heard him drive away. I sat there in the silence, shaking. But not from fear, from rage. Because David had just made a critical mistake. He'd confessed to everything, and every word had been recorded. 5 minutes later, Laura burst through the front door. 2 FBI agents were with her. "We got it," she said, her eyes bright. Every word. That was a full confession. "Is it enough?" I asked. "Enough, Mrs. Whitman? It's perfect. He admitted to theft, forgery, planning to commit fraud, and he threatened you. Any lawyer would kill to have evidence this clean." One of the FBI agents, a stern-looking woman named Agent Martinez, knelt down beside me. "Are you all right, Mrs. Whitman? That was incredibly brave." "I'm fine," I said. But I wasn't fine. I felt hollowed out, empty. "What happens now?" "Now we move fast," Agent Martinez said. "We've been building a case against your son and his wife for weeks. This recording is the final piece. Tomorrow morning, we're going to arrest them." "Both of them?" "Both of them. And we're going to freeze all their accounts, seize their assets, and begin the process of recovering your money." Laura sat down beside me and put her arm around my shoulders. "You did it, Mrs. Whitman. You beat them." But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like loss. The loss of the family I'd thought I had, the loss of the son I'd loved, the loss of 38 years of memories that I now knew were built on lies.
That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying David's words in my head. "You're sitting on a fortune, Mom, and you're just wasting it." "I'm just getting what should have been mine anyway. Why should I wait?" He'd never loved me. Maybe he had when he was young, when he was innocent. But somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being his mother and started being a source of income, an obstacle between him and the life he wanted. And I'd been too blind to see it. The next morning, I watched from my bedroom window as the FBI arrested David and Monica in the driveway. They'd just come back from breakfast. David was laughing at something Monica had said. They looked happy, carefree. Then 6 federal agents surrounded them. I saw the confusion on David's face turn to shock, then to fear. I saw Monica try to run and get tackled to the ground. I saw them both handcuffed, read their rights, loaded into separate cars. David looked up at my window. For just a moment, our eyes met. I saw betrayal in his expression. Like I was the one who'd done something wrong. Like I was the one who'd betrayed him. Then they drove him away. Evan came home from a friend's house an hour later. He found me sitting at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. "Grandma, where are my parents?" I looked at my grandson, this 17-year-old boy who'd barely spoken to me in 6 months, who'd been so absorbed in his phone that he'd never noticed what his parents were doing. "They've been arrested," I said. His face went white. "What? Why?" "They stole from me, Evan. They stole everything. He sank into a chair, his phone forgotten for once. I don't understand. Neither do I. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Evan spoke. Did you know that they were planning this? Not until recently.
Why didn't you say something? I did. To the right people. He was quiet again, processing. What's going to happen to them? I don't know. Prison, probably. And me? I looked at him, really looked at him for the first time in months. He wasn't a baby anymore. He was almost an adult, old enough to understand consequences. That depends on you, I said. Did you know what your parents were doing? No, he said immediately. Then he hesitated. I mean, I knew they were taking money from you. I heard them talking about it, but I thought you'd given it to them. I thought it was like a loan or something. Did you ask them about it? He looked down at his hands. No. Why not? Because I didn't want to know. He looked up at me and there were tears in his eyes. I'm sorry, Grandma. I should have said something. I should have asked questions, but I didn't want to deal with it. I reached across the table and took his hand. Evan, your parents made their choices. You don't have to pay for their mistakes, but you do have to decide what kind of person you want to be. Can I stay here with you? I thought about it. This boy who'd ignored me for months, who'd known something was wrong and looked the other way. But he was also my grandson, my blood. And he was 17, not an adult yet, not responsible for his parents' crimes. Yes, I said, you can stay. He started crying then, real heavy sobs. I got up and hugged him, and he clung to me like he was drowning and I was the only thing keeping him afloat. Maybe I was. The investigation took 4 months. During that time, Laura and the FBI agents interviewed dozens of people. They traced every dollar David and Monica had stolen. They found more victims, other elderly people who'd been targeted by Monica in her previous marriages. They found emails between David and Monica from 2 years ago, before Thomas even died. They'd been planning this for that long, waiting for my husband to pass away so they could move in, so they could start the process of draining me dry. Dr. Harrison came back to testify. He'd been transferred not to Alaska, but to protective custody. The FBI had moved him when they realized David and Monica knew he'd warned me. They'd been planning to discredit him, maybe even hurt him. He sat with me one afternoon at the coffee shop where Laura and I had first met. He looked older, tired. I'm sorry I couldn't do more, he said. I wanted to warn you properly, but I couldn't risk the investigation. You saved me, I told him. That note saved my life. How are you doing, really? I thought about it. I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm betrayed, but I'm also still here. I'm still fighting. That has to count for something. He smiled. Your son underestimated you. Everyone does, I said. They see an old woman and they think weak, confused, easy to manipulate. They forget that I taught 3rd grade for 40 years. I dealt with children who lied, who manipulated, who tried to get away with things every single day. I learned to see through deception. David wasn't counting on that. No, he thought I was stupid. That's what he called me, an idiot. Dr. Harrison reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. The trial started in February. It was held in the federal courthouse in Portland. The prosecution had so much evidence they could have tried 3 separate cases, but they wanted to do it all at once to show the scope of the conspiracy. David's lawyer tried everything. He claimed I'd given David permission to access my accounts. He claimed the mortgage was legitimate.
He even tried to argue that I was mentally unstable, that I'd fabricated the whole thing out of paranoia. But the recordings didn't lie. David's own words, clear as day, admitting to theft, admitting to forgery, threatening me. Monica's lawyer tried to blame everything on David, to paint her as another victim, but the prosecution brought out her history. 2 previous husbands, 2 previous elderly victims, a pattern of behavior that was impossible to deny.
The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all charges. When the verdict was read, I felt nothing. No triumph, no relief, just emptiness. The sentencing hearing was 2 weeks later. The judge was a woman in her 60s, stern and precise. She'd read every page of evidence. She'd listened to every recording. When it was time for victim impact statements, I stood up. My hands were shaking as I walked to the podium, but my voice was steady. Your Honor, my name is Arlene Whitman. I'm 68 years old. I was a school teacher for 40 years. I taught thousands of children to read, to write, to think critically, to question things that didn't make sense. I looked at David. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I loved my son. I would have given him anything. All he had to do was ask. But he didn't ask. He took. He stole. He lied. And when I discovered what he'd done, he threatened me. He told me accidents happen, that elderly people fall downstairs. My voice broke, just for a moment. I took a breath and continued. I'm here today not just for myself, but for every elderly person who's been taken advantage of by someone they trusted, someone they loved, family members who see their aging parents or grandparents as nothing but assets to be liquidated. I turned to the judge. My son called me an idiot. He said I was wasting my money by just existing. He said he was tired of waiting for me to die. Those are his words, Your Honor, recorded, undeniable. I spent 40 years teaching children that actions have consequences, that lying is wrong, that stealing is wrong, that you treat people with respect and dignity, especially those who are vulnerable. I looked at David again. This time, he was looking at me. His face was blank, emotionless. I failed with my son. I don't know where I went wrong, but I do know this. He deserves to be punished. Not because I want revenge, but because he needs to learn what I couldn't teach him. That you can't hurt people without consequences. That stealing from your own mother is not just illegal, it's evil. I stepped away from the podium. My legs were shaking, but I walked back to my seat with my head high. Monica's lawyer made a plea for leniency. David's lawyer talked about his difficult childhood, his struggles, his good intentions gone wrong. The judge listened to all of it. Then she spoke.
I've been a judge for 20 years. I've seen theft, fraud, assault, even murder. But this case disturbs me more than most. Why? Because it represents a fundamental betrayal of the most sacred trust we have as human beings, the trust between parent and child. She looked at David. Mr. Whitman, you didn't just steal money from your mother. You stole her security, her peace of mind, her ability to trust. You took advantage of her love, her generosity, her belief that you were a good person. She shuffled through papers on her desk. The prosecution has recommended 15 years in federal prison. The defense has asked for probation and restitution. I've considered both. She looked up. Mr. Whitman, you are hereby sentenced to 18 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole for the first 10 years. You will also be required to pay full restitution to your mother, including all stolen funds, legal fees, and damages. David's face went white. His lawyer started to protest, but the judge held up her hand. I'm not finished.
Mrs. Rourke, she addressed Monica's lawyer, your client has a history of this behavior. She is a predator who targets vulnerable elderly people. She represents a danger to society. Mrs. Monica Whitman, you are hereby sentenced to 15 years in federal prison, with no possibility of parole for the first 7 years. You will also be required to pay restitution, and you are hereby banned from any contact with elderly individuals outside your own family for the rest of your life. Monica started screaming. She had to be removed from the courtroom by bailiffs. David just sat there, staring straight ahead. The judge looked at me. Mrs. Whitman, I want you to know that the court recognizes your courage in coming forward. Too many victims of elder abuse remain silent out of shame or fear. You chose to fight back. That takes extraordinary strength. Thank you, Your Honor. As I left the courthouse, reporters were waiting. They wanted statements, interviews, photos. Laura helped me navigate through the crowd. I gave one brief statement. If you're elderly and someone in your family is asking unusual questions about your finances, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Talk to a doctor. Talk to a lawyer. Talk to the police. Don't let love blind you to danger. That clip played on the local news for weeks. I got letters from people all over the country, other victims of elder financial abuse, family members who suspected something was wrong, lawyers who wanted to help, advocacy groups fighting for stronger protections. I became, somewhat reluctantly, a voice for elder financial abuse awareness. I gave talks at community centers, I worked with legislators on new laws, I did interviews for documentaries and news programs. But mostly, I tried to rebuild my life. The money was returned, most of it, anyway. Some had been spent and couldn't be recovered, but I got back enough to be secure. The mortgage on my house was voided, my accounts were restored. Evan stayed with me. He finished high school, got accepted to Portland State University. He visits his father once a month in prison, though he says the conversations are difficult. David insists he did nothing wrong, that I betrayed him. Some people never learn. Evan and I have grown close. He helps me with technology, I help him with his essays. We cook dinner together, we talk about real things. He's become the family I thought I'd lost. One evening, about a year after the trial, Evan and I were sitting on the porch watching the sunset. He'd just gotten back from visiting David. "How is he?" I asked. "Same as always, angry, bitter. He says you ruined his life." I nodded. I had expected as much. "Grandma, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you miss him, my dad?" I thought about it. I miss the person I thought he was, the son I believed I had, but that person never really existed. So, no, I don't miss the real David, the one who stole from me, threatened me, called me an idiot. That person I'm glad to be rid of. Do you think he'll ever understand what he did wrong? No, I said honestly. I think he'll spend the rest of his life believing he was the victim, that I was the one who wronged him. That's sad. It is, but it's his choice. We all make choices, Evan. Your father chose greed over love. Monica chose manipulation over honesty. They're paying the price for those choices now. What choice did you make? I chose to fight back. To refuse to be a victim, to stand up for myself, even when it meant losing my son. He was quiet for a moment. I'm glad you did. Me too. We sat in comfortable silence as the sun dipped below the horizon. The sky turned orange, then pink, then purple. Grandma? Yes? Thank you for letting me stay. For not blaming me for what they did. I reached over and took his hand. You're not your parents, Evan. You get to choose who you become.
And so far, I like the person you're choosing to be." He smiled. It was genuine, warm, nothing like his father's calculated grin. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to Stories of Aria for more true stories of courage and justice. Together, we heal. 3 years have passed now. David is still in prison. He'll be there for another 7 years at minimum. Monica got out 6 months early for good behavior. I heard she moved to Florida. I hope she's changed, but I doubt it. Evan graduated from college last month. He's starting a job at a nonprofit that helps elderly people manage their finances, protects them from exploitation. He says I inspired him, that watching me fight back showed him what real strength looks like. I'm 71 now. I still volunteer at the elementary school. I still tell my story to anyone who'll listen, not because I want attention, but because I want other people to know they're not alone. If someone you love is stealing from you, if they're manipulating you, if they're making you feel crazy or confused or stupid, you're not imagining it. Trust yourself. Get help. Dr. Harrison retired last year, but we still have coffee every month. He tells me about his grandchildren. I tell him about Evan. We laugh about getting older, about aches and pains, and the indignity of aging. But we also talk about hope, about resilience, about the fact that even when the people who should love you betray you, there are still good people in the world. People like Laura, who dropped everything to help her old teacher. People like Dr. Harrison, who risked his career to slip a warning note to a patient. People like the FBI agents who worked tirelessly to build a case and recover my money. Sometimes family isn't who you're born with. It's who stands beside you when everyone else betrays you. It's the people who fight for you when you can't fight for yourself. It's the ones who see you as a person, not a bank account. That's the family that matters. That's the family worth keeping.
I still live in my house, the one Thomas and I bought 43 years ago, the one we raised David in, the one he tried to steal. Every room holds memories. Some are painful now, but most are still good. Thomas and I dancing in the kitchen, David as a baby, learning to walk in the hallway, birthday parties and Christmas mornings and quiet Sunday afternoons. Those memories are mine. David can't take them from me. The good ones or the bad ones. I'm still here. I'm still standing, and I'm not going anywhere. Because here's what I learned. You're never too old to fight back. You're never too old to demand justice. You're never too old to refuse to be a victim. I spent 40 years teaching children to be brave, to stand up to bullies, to tell the truth even when it's hard, to do the right thing even when everyone around them is doing the wrong thing. I finally took my own advice, and it saved my life. So if you're watching this, if you're in a similar situation, please know you're not alone. You're not crazy, you're not imagining things, and you're not too old to fight back. Document everything. Tell someone you trust. Call the police, call a lawyer, call anyone who will listen. And remember, the people who love you shouldn't make you feel afraid. They shouldn't make you question your own reality. They shouldn't steal from you or threaten you or call you an idiot. Real love protects. Real love cherishes. Real love would never hurt you intentionally. Anything else isn't love. It's abuse. And you deserve better. We all deserve better. Last week, I got a letter from a woman in Ohio. She'd seen my story on the news. She was 75, and her daughter had been slowly draining her accounts for years. She'd been too ashamed to tell anyone, too afraid no one would believe her. But my story gave her courage. She went to the police. They investigated. Her daughter was arrested. "You saved my life," she wrote. "Thank you for being brave enough to speak up." I cried when I read that letter, because that's why I keep telling this story. Not for revenge, not for attention, but because somewhere out there, someone else is going through what I went through. And maybe, just maybe, my story will give them the courage to fight back. That's enough. That's more than enough.
I'm Arlene Whitman. I'm 71 years old. I was a school teacher for 40 years, and I'm a survivor. If I can do this, so can you. Remember that. Hold on to it. And never, ever let anyone make you feel like you don't matter just because you're getting older. You matter. Your life matters. Your money matters. Your safety matters. And you have every right to protect all of it, even if it means standing up to the people you love. That's the lesson I learned. That's the truth I want to share. And that's the message I hope reaches everyone who needs to hear it. Be brave, be strong, and trust yourself. Because sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones you need protection from. And when that happens, you have to be your own hero. Thank you for listening to my story. If it helped you in any way, please share it. Please talk about it. Please help spread the word that elder abuse is real. It's common and it's devastating, but it's also preventable and punishable. Together, we can protect the most vulnerable among us. Together, we can make sure that what happened to me doesn't happen to someone else. Together, we can heal.